So any questions that you have of me before I put up the problems on the board? Eric, do you have a microphone or you're still typing?
I'm good for that.
All right. Okay, good.
I bought it for like 100.
Thank goodness for that Friday. Good. Okay. Kathy, you're there?
Yeah, I've got Mike and whatever.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to like not be here for your recording.
Oh, okay. Okay, folks. So here are the two problems. So actually, both problems are going off of one table. So I'm going to use a table for both problems. And it goes like this. So let me write up on a board. Number of workers. So 0 workers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and output. Zero, 200 units, 420, 620, 770, 870. But we're not done yet. Six, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And output 945, 1,000, 1,025, 1,035, and 1,040. Okay, folks. So we have a firm that if they employ 0 workers, they're going to produce obviously nothing. If they employ 1, they're going to produce 200, 2, 420, 3, 620, and so on. So depending on how many workers they have, they're going to have different outputs. Now, they tell us, they give us the following information. The marginal factor cost of labor, marginal factor cost, remember, was how much we're paying the workers. The marginal factor cost of labor is 200. So MFC equals 200. So the wage that we're paying each worker is $200. And then they tell us that to get the firm to hire 8 workers, so what we need is to hire 8 workers. They're asking, well, now the problem is I'm going to make it easier for you than it's on the quiz. And the reason is on the quiz, they give you 4 choices. And you should pick the correct one. in here, I'm not gonna give you the four choices. I'm basically gonna give you almost the answer. Folks, so here's the deal. We're paying each one of those workers, we're paying $200. And they're saying that if we are willing to hire 8 workers, the question is, what is the price of those units that they are producing if you are willing, if the firm is willing to hire 8 workers? So now let me give you one minute or so, and you come up with the answer is what is the price of the product if the firm is willing to hire 8 workers? So I give you
I
a
have
little
one
bit of,
question.
pardon
What is
me?
the second, what is the second output, Stan?
Oh, I'm sorry. This one is 200.
No,
So it's
that first
0.
output is for the, how many produced, right? Output of unit?
Yeah, how many units they're producing. So with 0 workers, you're producing 0 units.
What about the second column, the output, output, what's the unit of that? 945 and 1025. Those,
945 widgets, 1,000 widgets, whatever they're producing.
oh, okay.
If they're producing pianos, this is pianos. If they're producing shirts, this is shirts.
Oh, so first output is per workers.
Now, this column is the number of workers, and this column is also number of workers. But with different numbers of workers, you're going to have different outputs. So you, with 0 workers, 0 output. 1 worker, 200. 2 workers, 420, and so on.
Okay. Okay.
With 10 workers, you're producing 1,040 units. With 9 workers,
Oh,
1,035.
I didn't realize it continued in.
Yeah,
from
it
there.
continues.
Sorry, that just, okay.
Okay, so tell me what is the price of those units if you are willing, if the firm is willing to hire 8 workers and each worker is paid $200. And whenever you have the answer, just yell it out. Okay, let me give you a hint. Do you remember how many workers a firm was willing to hire? How did we find that Q star, the number of workers that a firm is willing to hire? At what point? Where did we stop?
Where marginal factor cost meet the marginal revenue? Of product?
Okay, very good. So that's what you need. You need the marginal factor cost to be equal to marginal revenue product. Do we know the value for marginal factor cost? So I'm asking you.
200
Good,
workers.
200. So we know that marginal factor cost is 200. That's the wage. Okay, so we know that we need marginal revenue product to be equal to what?
Marginal factor cost.
You told me that the answer is we hire to the point where marginal revenue product equals marginal factor cost. You also told me that marginal factor cost is equal to 200. It was given. So that means that we need marginal revenue product to be equal to 200, right?
Yes.
Okay, are you with me so far?
Yes.
Okay, so marginal revenue product equals marginal factor cost. Since marginal factor cost is 200, that means that marginal revenue product is equal to 200. It needs to be equal to 200. Okay. We know how many workers we need to hire. How many workers do we need to hire?
So
I gave you. The problem was given to you.
Oh, 8 workers. Okay.
8 workers. So we need to hire 8 workers. What is the contribution of the eighth, not 8 workers, but the 8th one? How much does the 8th one contribute in terms of units? In terms of units,
10? Oh, wait, 25?
25, because 7 workers are producing 1,000 units and 8 workers are producing 1,025. So by bringing in that 8th worker, that extra 8th worker, the contribution was 25 units because it went up from 1,000 to 1,025. So the 8th worker contribute 25 units. But we don't want the contribution in terms of units. We need the contribution in terms of dollars. And we know that the contribution in terms of units times the price of a unit is going to represent the contribution in terms of dollars. And the contribution in terms of dollars has to be equal to 200. So what price do those units sell for? So the contribution of the 8th worker is exactly 200. So the 8th worker contributes 25 units. And the value of those 25 units in terms of dollars should be equal to 200 because MRP equals MFC on the last worker. The contribution to the revenue should be equal to the contribution to the cost. Since the contribution to the cost is $200, that's the wage, their contribution to the revenue would have to be equal to $200. And the only case that their contribution is equal to $200 is if the price of each one of those units is equal to, and you give me the answer.
$8?
Exactly, $8. Because $8 times 25 units is equal to $200. So they contribute 25 units, and if each unit is $8, that means that their contribution to the revenue is $200, which is exactly the same as their contribution to the cost. So that's where we stop. We stop at MRP equal MFC. You see, we are not going to be willing to hire the 9th worker. Can anybody tell me why the firm would not be willing to hire the 9th worker?
Because only contribute to $90?
Because they contribute how much?
90?
90?
No? I don't know.
If the price is $8 and how much they contribute in terms of goods, in terms of units? The 9th worker, how much does the 9th worker contribute in terms of units?
10?
10. And given that the price is, let's say it's $8, how much do they contribute in terms of dollars? How much revenue are they bringing in?
80?
$80. And how much are they contributing in terms of cost to the firm? What's the wage?
200.
200. So would you hire somebody who's going to cost you $200 and they only bring in $80 to the firm?
That would be a negative.
Exactly. It's a negative. No, you're
Are
not
we
going to
giving-
give.
I'm sorry. Are we giving the price of unit somewhere, or do we have?
Well,
to
we just
calculate?
calculated that if you were willing to hire 8 workers, then the price of a unit should be $8. Okay. So given that the price of a unit we calculated as $8 for 8 workers, then I asked you, well, how come then you would not hire 9 workers? Because the contribution to the revenue of the 9th worker is less than their contribution to the cost. So let's do the problem this way. But what if the firm was willing to hire 9 workers? If the firm was willing to hire 9 workers, what would be the price of the good? What would the price of the good have to be if the firm was willing to hire 9 workers? Let's do it this way. I want you to see the difference. So when they were willing to hire 8 workers, then the price of a good would be $8, because 8 times 25 equals 200, which is the contribution to the cost. But for the firm to hire 9 workers, what would the price have to be in order for the firm to be willing to hire 9 workers? That means that the contribution to the cost of the 9th worker, which is $200, would have to be the same as their contribution to the revenue. Well, how much do they contribute in terms of units? How much?
10.
10, exactly. So what would be the price for them to be willing to hire 9 workers?
20.
10 times 20, exactly. So you see, let me ask you this, folks. So I hope that now you're getting the idea. folks, if the price was, let's say the firm was willing to hire the first worker, and obviously if they are willing to hire the first worker, the contribution to the revenue would have to be equal to the contribution to the cost, and the price would be $1, and so on. So you always want to have, however many workers you want to hire, the contribution of the last worker that you hire. So if it's 8, the contribution of the 8th worker. If it's 9 workers, the contribution of the 9th worker. If it's 10, the contribution of the 10th worker. So the contribution of the last worker in terms of revenue would have to be equal to the contribution to the cost. Marginal revenue product equals marginal factor cost. You get the idea, folks? Okay, good. Okay, let's do another problem. It says, refer to the table, to the above table. Suppose the marginal revenue product. So now they're telling you that the marginal revenue product, the contribution to the revenue of the 7th worker, is $1,100. This implies that, so if the 7th worker, so you're hiring 7 workers, and they're telling you that the contribution to the revenue of the 7th worker is equal to $1,100. What would be the price if their contribution of the 7th worker is equal to $1,100? What would be the price of the units? So they're telling you the contribution of the 7th worker is $1,100. What is the price of a unit, given that you know that the contribution to the revenue of the 7th worker is $1,100? Okay, let me do it for you. Can you tell me how much the 7th worker contributes in terms of units?
Sorry to interrupt, but the problem that you're doing right now, is it in a module? Because I can't seem to find it.
No, but can anybody tell me how much does the 7th worker contribute in terms of units? Okay, let's do it like this. Can you tell me how much the first worker contributes in terms of units?
200.
Okay, the second worker, how much do they contribute? The second worker?
220.
220. The third one?
You're at 150. I'm sorry, third one, 200.
200. And then the fourth one?
150.
150. And the fifth one?
100.
100. And the sixth one?
75.
75. And the seventh one?
55.
So the seventh worker contributes 55 units. Because with 6 people, there were 945 units. With 7 people, it's 1,000 units. So they added another 55 units. And that 55 units represents $1,100. And if 55 units will be $1,100 only if the price of a unit is equal to
Are we talking $20 here?
Yes. Because $20 times 55 units equals $1,100. So the contribution of the worker in terms of units times the price of the unit gives you their contribution in terms of revenue. So if you contribute 10 units and each unit sells for $5, you are contributing $50 to that business. 5 units or 10 units times $5. Okay, here's a quick question. Let me ask you this. Let's say that the fifth worker contributes to the revenue $500. If the fifth worker contributes to the revenue $500, can you tell me what would the price of the unit have to be for the fifth worker to contribute to the revenue $500? What's the price?
$5. No,
They
I'm
contribute
sorry.
$500.
Yeah, divided by 100, no?
Right, so how much is it?
$5.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Well, I didn't speak towards the microphone, so.
Yeah, I thought you said $1, that's why. But yeah, you're absolutely right, it's $5. But because they contribute 100 units, and in terms of units, but if that represents $500 in terms of revenue, that means that the price of a unit must be $5. Okay, folks. Let me do the following. Let's say that, let's assume that the price of a unit is equal to $5. The price of a unit is equal to $5. And I'm asking you, what would be the maximum wage that you would be willing to pay those workers if what would be the maximum wage that you would be willing to pay 5 workers, for you to be willing to hire 5 workers? What would be the maximum wage that you would be willing to pay if you were to hire 5 workers? So what we're assuming here now is this. We want to hire 5 workers, and we know that the price of a unit is $5. $5 each one of those units that they're producing. If you are willing to hire 5 workers, what's the maximum wage that you would be willing to pay and have those 5 workers working for you?
100?
You hire to the point where MRP equal MFC. MFC is the wage. What is the MRP? The contribution to the revenue of the last worker. Which one is the last worker? The first one, the second, the third, the fourth, or the fifth, when you hire 5 workers?
5th?
The fifth. And what is their contribution to the revenue?
500?
Their contribution to revenue is $500. Is 100 units times 5 equals $500. That is the maximum wage that the firm would be willing to pay. Because you hire to the point where MRP equal MFC. Got it?
I'm sorry, are we taking off the constraint that all workers have to have the same wage?
Yeah, all workers have the same wage.
So you're saying 5 workers for 870 output will have a wage of maximum 500 for each, with the last worker hired in at
Yeah,
500?
because the
Sorry,
contribution, you remember the graph?
yeah,
This is MFC. This is MRP. You hire to the point where the contribution of the last worker to the revenue is the same as to the cost.
yeah,
So if you're willing to hire 5 workers, the contribution to the revenue of the last worker would be equal to the contribution to the cost. Since the last worker contributes $500 to the revenue, then you should be willing to hire all the workers for $500.
okay,
Remember, now, the first worker contributes to the revenue. How much money are they contributing to the revenue?
$1,000?
$1,000. And how much money are you putting in their pocket?
500.
500. So it makes sense. The second worker contributes, let's see, 220 times 5.
That's 2,100?
1,100.
I'm sorry, okay,
Yeah. And so on. So up to all those workers, up to this guy, are contributing more to the revenue than to the cost. The last person contributes just as much to the revenue as to the cost. And if the price is the same price, $5, are you going to be willing to hire that 6th worker? Let's think about it. How
well,
much
then
money
you're
are
at
you going to pay them? How much money are you going to pay them?
500.
500. And how much money are they bringing in? Well, let's
75
see.
times 5, so then we've got,
No, it's 75 times 5.
so then we have the 375 they're bringing in, which is
Yeah.
less than their wages.
Exactly. So you're not going to be willing to. So now are you guys starting to get the idea? Yeah. Okay, so
I'm sorry to stress it out more. So do you have to have the price per unit to be able to, I mean, which factors do we have here? 3 or 4 different factors?
well, in the first problem, they said this: if you are willing to hire 8 workers,
So you're given number of workers, got it?
and you were given that each worker makes $200
Their wage, okay.
their wage, and then they ask, well, what's the price of a product? And you go by the idea, the contribution to the revenue of the last worker or the 8th worker should be equal to the margin to the contribution to the cost. The
Okay,
contribution to the cost is $200. Their contribution in terms of units is 25 units. So what is the price of a unit if you are willing to hire 8 workers? Well, we know that their contribution to the revenue should be equal to the contribution to the cost. So how much they contribute in terms of units times the price is equal to the contribution to the cost, which is 200. So 25 units times X equals 200.
okay, I'm with you now, thanks.
Mhm. Is everybody with me? Okay, Eric?
The
Yeah.
question,
Yeah, Kimiko, go ahead.
sorry, if question say if you're willing to hire 8 workers, they're willing to pay a wage of $200 per worker, what is the question?
The question was, what is the price of a unit if they are willing to hire 8 workers?
What is the price of it? Okay.
and you know that you hire to the point where the contribution of the last worker to the revenue is equal to their contribution to the cost. Their contribution to the cost is $200. Their contribution to the revenue, you know, has to be equal to $200, but you only know that they contribute 25 units. So since 25 units has to translate into $200, then you understand that the price has to be equal to $8 a unit, because $8 times 25 units equals $200.
Okay.
Okay, folks, so this is the toughest problems that I have in this chapter. And I may not even give you something like this. I just gave it to you today so I can confuse you. Or I may give you a problem like this. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is next week I'm going to have a lecture on international trade. And this is true for both macro and microeconomics, both Econ 120 and 121. So I'm going to have the same lecture. And then the last week, I'm going to have a review for the final. And then the final will be available the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th. So I'm going to give you 3 days. 3 days to take that final, anytime you want it. And also I'm going to extend the deadline for the paper is going to be Monday the 14th, because officially Monday the 14th is the last day of classes. So therefore I'm going to make the deadline for the paper Monday the 14th. As always, I am here Monday through Thursday at 1 o'clock. If you have a question and you can make it in the morning, I'm at 10:30 also. I know that it's for macro, but I can take any questions anyway. And also at night, I am here on Monday night at 6 o'clock and Wednesday night also 6 o'clock. Questions, comments?